Thank you.
So let's loop back a little bit. I'm going to tell you the story and then I'll come back to the theme. So I was driving. I have two teenage daughters. So I spent a lot of time in my car, right? Driving my children all around town and everywhere they need to go and be. And I was about to turn and a crossing guard was there and I got confused because he wasn't being clear if he was letting a child cross or not, and I didn't know what to do. So I just stopped and I had my car in a very odd position in the intersection. And he got aggravated and started to, raise his voice probably so that I could hear him. But I reacted with not anger, but self-defense. Like I could feel my adrenaline coming up. I was under a lot of pressure. It was like, oh, what am I supposed to do? I'm in this crosswalk and the guard is getting upset and the child's there and I have to keep him safe. And so I could feel my body get really tense, like super, super tense. And even though the situation quickly, ended and he crossed the child and then I moved along my way, my body was shaky, right? I had all that adrenaline running through me. I had all those thoughts of like, oh, I wish that person hadn't yelled at me and I, hope I didn't anger him and all these things. And it really stuck with me for a good part of the day. I had a hard time letting it go. And until finally I went home and there was a quiet moment and I had to intentionally sit so that I could just let that feeling go out of my body. And I'm sure we can all relate to this, right? And that's what that is. So it's like, I'm calling it the great edit, right? What can we edit that really doesn't serve us? We have so many moments just like that are just come and go. They move so quickly. They're not answering any of our problems, our personal things. They're not helping us to do anything. They're just moments in the day that might be upsetting or that we might carry. So how do we edit those out, right? How do we edit those moments that really affect us, but that we don't need to carry around for the rest of the day? Because if we're carrying all those other moments, how can we really examine what we need to be examining? Like within our communities, our families, our friends, our faith, our studies, anything we're doing, right? So we need to edit our minds. And I think that's a lot to do with what this season represents too. It's sort of like a clearing, right? So I invite you all, just before we get started, you don't have to close your eyes or anything, but maybe identify a few of those moments that might have happened to you in the last stretch of time in your life that you might be still holding on to or thinking about or, contemplating, and identify what they are that you can let go. Not the big ones, not the ones you need to be working on, right? But the ones that are small, the ones that you can let go, like the crossing guard. Okay, so just take a moment and don't think too hard about it. Maybe nothing comes to you, that's fine too. It could be something small even, like you broke your favorite coffee mug, right? Because those things, they stick with us. And we keep churning them over and over and over. So just take a moment and we'll just be quiet for a few seconds and just identify. Okay. So one of the most useful ways that we can use meditation is to sit and release these feelings so that we can do the work that we're set here to do. So I have 3 points. I have observation, right? Identification, and then permission. So you observe, right? You observe how you're feeling. How are you feeling about this thing that we're working on, letting go and releasing? How does it make you feel physically? How does it make you feel emotionally? How does it make you feel spiritually? And then we identify it, right? We really see it, like really clearly in your mind's eye, really, really clear. See the situation, see that thing happen, see that thing that's just, knocking on your thoughts. And then as we sit quietly and we're observing, Then you start to give permission, right? Permission to let go. So I give myself permission to let go. All right. We need to work with allowing ourselves. All right. Okay, so before we get into our meditation to work with what this feels like to let go, and we'll do a guided meditation with it, some visuals. I just want you to stand up if it's comfortable. You can absolutely stay seated, okay? But if you want to stand up, just stand up. You can feel your feet on the ground. You can stay seated, feel your feet underneath your seat, however you want to be. If it feels comfortable for you, just close your eyes. And just observe how you are feeling. Observe any tension in your physical body. Observe any tension in how you breathe. Just notice. When you feel ready, gently blink open your eyes. If you're seated, that's absolutely fine. If you're standing, I want you to shake your feet. You can do this even if you're seated. Just lift and shake your feet out a little bit. Okay. I know it feels silly. Promise I won't tell anybody. Then I'll explain why we do it. And then when you're ready, same thing, shake out your hands, just nice and gentle to shake them out a little bit. Right. And then take your right hand to your left shoulder and just brush your arm, just like you're brushing some lint off of your sweater. And then brush your other arm, just brush. Excellent. Okay, I want you to take one hand over your heart and take your other hand over your heart. And just notice your heartbeat. Feel your heart beating under your hands. And just allow your hands to be heavy there. Maybe press into your sternum a little bit. Okay. And when you're ready, gently blink open your eyes. Okay. All right. So we just did 3 things. Okay. What you did was you observed how you were feeling, you identified it. Okay. And you gave permission. So those are just little physical reminders of those steps. If you want to sit down, you can have a seat. And before we get into our meditation, because I wanted to do just like a little quick kind of question answer thing. One of the other things with meditation is it doesn't always have to look like what we're about to do, right? We're about to do a guided meditation with visuals. I'm sitting here in front of you. You're with your friends. You might be at home. Maybe your family's in the room with you. Maybe your pets. It doesn't always look like this. Sometimes it looks very simple. Sometimes it looks like taking a walk in the park, right? Because what are you doing when you're taking a walk in the park? You're intentionally setting time aside for yourself so that you can clear your mind. And that's all meditation is. So maybe if somebody wanted to just shout out something they do, like on a daily basis or just once in a while, there really is for you a meditation. All right, I'm going to do a cliche. I like to walk on the beach. It's like classic, right? That's meditation. Because you hear that noise of the ocean. It's clearing your mind. You can move through your thoughts a little better. So anything else anyone want to share that they do, that they consider a meditation in their normal daily life? Right, garden work, absolutely. Anything else? Go for a drive, totally. Do you listen to music? Yeah. Nice. 80s rock, all right. Anybody at home? That's okay. So in other words, like when you need the time, take the time and do meditation that works for you. And hopefully you'll learn something here too that you can use with you. All right, so when you're ready, both feet are nice on the ground. You can really feel your feet under you. And if you're in a chair or a pew, just sit back nicely so that you're really super supported by your seat. All right, really important to be comfortable as you come into these intentional moments. Okay, and just allow your hands to rest comfortably on your lap. Some people like to hold their hands together. But wherever your arms are just not working, they're really nice and loose and supported. If it feels comfortable for you, blink your eyes open. If you'd rather leave your eyes open, blink them closed. If you'd rather leave them open, just find a gazing point that's non-moving. And just begin by giving yourself permission to enter into your meditation. Give yourself permission to enter into these next few minutes. And just begin by observing. Observe your breath. Feel it come in and very gently go out. And just a few rounds of very intentional inhales and exhales. We breathe all the time, but just notice what happens when you pay attention to your breath. Take in a little bit more on your inhale, and slowly with control, extend your exhale. Just a few rounds, just like that. Very intentional inhale, gentle, controlled exhale. Begin to travel into your mind's eye. And see yourself sitting in the room that you're sitting in. Notice the room around you. Visualize yourself in your chair. Begin to give yourself permission to enter into another space. In your mind's eye, begin to see a vast open field. Notice the noises that the grass is making in the wind. Notice the color of the grass, vibrant green, yellows, and browns. In your mind's eye, look down and see your own feet firmly planted on the ground. And begin to walk. Feel the grass under your feet. Taking very intentional steps. And as you look ahead, You see a clearing in the field, and you decide to move toward it, taking your time with each step. Again, hearing the grass rustle, noticing the vibrant colors. Soon you have entered into the clearing, and you decide to sit, slowly lowering yourself to the earth, finding a comfortable seat. And again, noticing the vibrant colors of the grass. Green, yellow, brown. You decide to lie down, laying on your back and gazing up at the sky. In the center of the sky, right above you, is a cloud. The cloud is large, thick, gray, and it is blocking the sun. Notice the shape of this cloud. Trace the edges with your mind's eye. Again, feel the wind as it moves through the grass. Hear the noise that it makes. Notice the cloud above you once more, as it has begun to change and dissipate. It begins to separate, small pieces coming off of the edge, floating away. And the cloud gets smaller. Again, feel the wind and hear the noise that it makes through the grass. Soon the cloud is breaking in half, and sunlight begins to stream down, filling the field around you, passing over your face, warming your skin. Once more, notice the wind, grateful that it is moving this cloud. Soon the cloud has broken up into many small pieces, gently floating away from each other, moving in different directions. Now the field is covered in sun. Feel the warmth on your face and on your skin. Now you decide it is time to go. Slowly sitting up, moving very intentionally in your mind's eye. Shifting your body to stand. And once more, looking around, noticing the grasses as they move and sway, noticing the colors, green, yellow, brown. You begin to walk, placing the field behind you, moving with intention. You come to stop, look down at your feet once more. Notice them firmly planted on the ground. Giving yourself permission to move out of that space. And in your mind's eye, once more, see yourself seated in this chair. Feel the shape that your body is in. And when you feel ready, taking a deep inhale through your nose and an intentional exhale out of your mouth. 2 more just like that at your own pace. Inhale through your nose. Exhale, release out of your mouth. 1 more. And when you feel ready, once more, bring one hand to your heart and taking your other hand to place it on top. And just like the wind in our meditation, allow the cloud to dissipate and move on. Give any situation, any thought or feeling that no longer serves you permission to move on. When you feel ready, gently blink open your eyes, float your hands down to your lap, and just inviting small movements back, maybe wiggle fingers, wiggle toes. And thank you so much for going through that meditation with me. It was slightly longer, but the reason we visit those slightly longer things is so that we can really settle in, right? And hopefully you feel a little different now than when we started. And if you don't, that's absolutely okay too. Thank you, Pastor. I think that does anyone have any questions or anything they would like to share after that? No.
So when your thoughts move away from the process, any way that we can bring it back? Do you have any recommendation?
Bring like,
I mean, center again. You know, when our thoughts fly away, which often do that when we do meditation.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the feeling that comes after a meditation, you know, sometimes it's like sort of feeling like a little lighter, or I would even say, go as far as to say lightheaded or a little disconnected. But that's actually the opposite. That's actually what it feels like to be grounded in how I understand it, because we're so used to feeling sort of so noisy that feeling of quiet that you create, it can almost be uncomfortable. It can almost leave you feeling sort of untethered, but it's what you do with that moment, right? So from that moment, if you're moving into prayer or you're moving into self-study or you're moving into study or anything you want to put there, your work, that's a really good place to be, because you've cleared out all the excess, right? Makes sense? Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. It was just so wonderful to be here in Japan while I had wild few days of walking around, watching many different things with a bunch of noisy friends, and using a small hotel room with 4 people together, and it's so good to sit and breathe and focus on myself. That this just been very helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, now it's time for us to listen to a story. And today's storyteller is Reverend Mike McKay. He is a retired United Methodist Church pastor. Actually, he just retired a few months ago. And he's a very dear friend of mine. And I am so happy to have him here today. So welcome, Mike. Can we all give him a welcome waving? All right, it's all yours now.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jason. And I think my understanding of the story that I'd like to share with you would be to report from the front lines of retirement. And the first thing I want to say to all of you is that I highly recommend it. It's pretty awesome. And Jason is right, I retired last July 1st after 42 years of knowing what I was going to do every Sunday. And I think the story that I'd like to share with you would be just a few of the moments along the way in that journey, and the ways that God's grace came to me in the midst of it, and has gotten me to a place that I can tell you I am thankful for every day. And I think that the first step, well, let me just kind of say the grace to me, the simplest way to say it is it's something I don't deserve. Whether it's a gift, whether it's the grace of forgiveness, whether, from God through Jesus or from another person, or the grace of my next breath. I just have this powerful sense that I am the recipient of much, much more than I've ever given or been able to give in this life. So that's kind of my story. And the ways that it gets reinforced for me are along the way in the retirement, all the places that I saw God's grace at work. And I think the first place I can say to you now is the 3 years of the process that I went through to begin to decide that I was going to retire. God was helping me. I had a pretty clear notion. I wasn't going to be one of those folks who was 85 years old and being kind of draped over a pulpit on a Sunday and continuing to work in that way. I was very clear in my mind and heart that there would be a time where I would not be in full-time ordained ministry anymore. And so then the next question was, what am I going to do? And where am I going to do it? And that's where God's grace began to come to me through friends. And I have quite a number of friends at a place called Wooden Boat School in Brooklyn, Maine, which is, if you want to think of it this way, it's kind of like camp for grown-ups. And where they come and they turn us loose with saws and sharp tools and let us try and teach us how to build boats and keep us off the streets and out of trouble in Brooklyn, Maine. And after taking classes up there, you become eligible for a thing that's called Alumni Work Weeks that happen in May every year, and it helps the school to open itself for the new summer season. And there's a real community there that where I began to know people well. And a lot of those folks in the last few years retired and were sort of like the trailblazers. And so the first gift I got was just the gift of being able to have conversation about what are you seeing? What are you experiencing? What are you thinking about as you make this decision? And how come? And then to be able to link that with a sense of, well, in the course of my working life, I served 6 different appointments. And each time that you do that, I liken it to crossing a river. Because when you leave a previous church, you're not going back. And when you go across that river, you're really going into a new territory. I think probably for all of us, it's a lot like the stages of life. You know, when you leave being a child and become a teenager, there's no going back. Right? You know, you leave your teenage years and start to become an adult. Well, sometimes we try and go back, but there really isn't any going back. There are so many different life stages, and you've probably, I'm thinking every one of us has seen a few of them in our own journeys. And I had a sense that this was going to be a big one because I was going to be changing not only where I was living, but what I was doing when I got there. And the friendships that I had there in Brooklyn were so helpful to me for how to think about that for myself. The other thing that was so helpful was to watch other people retire, both in my family and in my local churches. And just among us, can I be honest with you? There were some people that were better at it than others. And the thing that I noticed about people who were better at it, they had something to go to. And they had something that helped them have a sense of purpose beyond what they used to be in their working life. And I just became real determined. Who did I want to be when I grew up? And and that people and God's grace coming to me through those conversations, those friendships, and what people gave to me was so incredibly helpful. And then the other things I will just call, now that I look back on them, in the Methodist movement and with John Wesley, it's called prevenient grace. And the easiest way to understand prevenient grace is it's God's grace that's at work while you're busy doing something else. And you may not notice it right away. And so as I've been here, and I am now on the eastern shore of Maryland, I'm in Kent County, Maryland. And it's a different kind of place. And here's the easiest way for me to help you identify how different it is. The population density in New Jersey, where you all are, well, except for Jason, is 1,260 people per square mile. And I've always said to people when I was living in New Jersey, it makes us all a little bit tense to have that many people around. In Kent County, Maryland, where I am, there's 70 people per square mile. So we're not anywhere near as tense. and I have a feeling I can't go out in the streets like you've been doing with your friends, Pastor, and see so many things happening like you're doing in Japan. And how did I pick it? Well, I wanted to be close to water because I like to be out on the water. I like to do that. And so that kind of led me there. And then, houses that I could afford. And, part of God's grace, it was at work. I got a great real estate agent, and she used her skills and her ability to listen to me and the things that I was hoping to really help me find the right place to be. And lo and behold, I signed the house and closed on it before everything went crazy. And I'm just so incredibly thankful for that. And then since I've gotten down here full time, God's given me the sense and the grace to just, like the whole exercise that we went through. I think I've been living that kind of every day since I got down here in mid-June full time. And that what are the things that you can let go of? And where are there maybe things that you can see in a new way that you hadn't seen before? You know, one of the things I can say that as a mainline pastor, it is easy from time to time to sit quietly and beat myself up, because I'm part of the generation of clergy that has helped local churches drive off a cliff, kind of like with Thelma and Louise, you know. And for a long time, I was really feeling bad about that. And God's grace kind of was at work, and it came to me through a little story. Are any of you baseball fans? New York Mets? Oh, great. This is perfect. Okay, perfect story. This story is from the 1962 Mets. And Richie Ashburn, who played for the Philadelphia Phillies, who was my team, played the first year with the Mets in 1962. And he was the most valuable player on that team. And it was a team that lost 120 games out of 160. And Richie always said he kind of felt odd about being the most valuable player on the worst team in the history of baseball. But he tells this story. Their manager was Casey Stengel. And the last day of the season in the Polo Grounds, they had been losing. They had a long losing streak. It was the last game. It had been a long, difficult summer for all of them. And he got them together and he said, you know, it's been a hard summer. A lot of stuff has happened. Most of it's not good. He said, but I don't want any one of you feeling too bad about it, because no one person could have done all this by themselves. And for some reason, God prompted that story in my mind about 4 or 5 years ago, at a point where I was really feeling pretty badly about my professional journey and the results that I had gotten. And I all of a sudden said to myself, yeah, no one person could do all this by themselves. We've all been in it together. And there's a lot of forces at work that are bigger than any one of us. And there's been a huge liberation in that. And I just keep coming back to that story over and over again. No one person can do all this by themselves. And I'd invite you to take the lens anytime you go out into your everyday life. Like I just had a doctor's appointment today. And I just walking through that office, I met 4 or 5 different people who had skills and abilities that I don't have. And what they did is they lent me their skills and their abilities to help me be healthy and to navigate the paperwork and the insurance coverage and making sure everything's taken care of appropriately. That's a grace. And it's a grace that we all extend to each other. And you find it every day. It's all around you. You know, who's out there doing things that you either don't know how to do or you just don't want to do? You know, and it's incredible when you start to see it with those eyes. And also, too, you begin to think about your journey in new ways. I'll just give you 2 quick instances and how this thinking with a grace outlook helped me. For over 30 years, I taught sailing every summer at the United Methodist Summer Camp in North Jersey, up at Lake Swartzwood. And, you know, so what? A bunch of kids taught them sailing. You know, we were a bunch of hoodlums and out on the water, and we had a lot of fun. But I really sat down and I started looking at it, and I did that for 33 summers. And each one of those summers, I think on average, between the highs and the lows, I took 15 kids every summer out onto the lake. So that's almost 500 kids that I got to teach how to sail. And even more important than that, I sent them home safe and well to their mom and dad. And, you know, when you go out on the water like that, you think, oh, what could happen? Lots of stuff can happen. I also, for 22 years, was part of a mission trip that would go to southeastern Kentucky every year. And I did it in partnership with several other pastors and churches. And we got to a place where we were taking between 90 and 110 people every summer for a week. So I stepped back and I looked at that and I said, you know what? If on average, from the smaller parts to the larger, we just said 70 people every week for 22 years, that's over 1,500 people. I was part of giving that experience in God's name every summer. And all of a sudden you go, what did I do with my work life? Well, there's two things right there. It's a grace to begin to be able to look back and see the places where you've been touched by other people and you have been able to touch other people. And it's an incredible gift. And then the final thing I'm going to say to all of you, being in retirement, I just turned 65 back in November, so I retired at 64. People said, wow, that seems awful young. And I said, well, my dad died at 69, so I don't think so. And the Alzheimer's that claimed my mom started to settle in on her at around 75. So I kind of looked at my possibilities and said, And the grace has let me say a couple different things. For instance, like the pleasure of being able to participate with you in those meditation exercises. You know, and Pastor, I share with you that same problem. My brain is almost like that character. What's that movie Up, where the dog is going squirrel, you know, and we're out in that nice peaceful field. My mind's going, oh, I hear traffic, all kinds of things. But even in the midst of that, I've been able to kind of reflect. And it's not that I've made a deal with God, but it's just an understanding that I have about my life. And I've landed in this good place. I have a lot of gifts to look back on that I am so thankful for. And I have a life ahead of me, however long or short it is. And I'm just doing the things that I need to do, not to live forever on my own. Because friends, I don't know if it's okay if I break this to you. Gravity is undefeated. And that's just a fact. And that's why in our faith, and that's why during Lent, one of the operative images is the dying and rising of Jesus. Not skipping over the dying part to get to rising, but the dying and rising. So that I've determined what I'm going to do is take care of myself so that I can be the best that I can be now, for however long my body lasts and God gives to me to be able to do that. And the final thing that grace has pushed me to do, in the last church that I retired from, we had a food pantry. And I really loved that ministry. And what I loved above all was climbing the mountain during COVID of how do we serve people food when we can't invite them in the building. And I won't bore you with the details of that, but I'll just say we figured it out. And that God just opened so many doors for us on those things. And that ministry just was transformed in some of the best ways possible because of COVID. And that what it did was it just filled my heart with a desire. And I finally, 2 weeks ago, went to the Kane County Food Pantry on a Tuesday morning at the Methodist Church, oddly enough, in town. And I shared food with people for 2 hours. And that is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I was grateful to be able to extend that grace to the guests who came needing to get food at a food pantry, and to try and help them feel welcome and okay with that. And I think the last thing I want to say to you is that always there's a scriptural foundation, and I'm not going to read it to you. I'm not going to wear you out with a lot of words, but if you want to see the scriptural foundation of what I'm talking about tonight, 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and the first 10 verses of that. And that's where Paul, and it's probably the first written thing about the resurrection. Paul probably wrote that within 20 to 25 years of the actual events of Jesus' death and resurrection. And it has all the components in it that I just shared with you tonight. The first is that grace that God brings us is through Jesus Christ. And it's through his dying, his rising, that we can face our dying and have a hope of our rising. And we share it together. Paul talks about, I gave to you what the community of faith gave to me. The understanding that Jesus died for our sins in accordance with the scriptures, that he was raised on the third day, and that he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time. And then Paul talks about some of the other apostles, James and Peter, and all the apostles that Jesus appeared to. And then he says the most amazing thing. He says, and then he appeared finally to me, the most unlikely person you could imagine, because I persecuted the church of God. And I'm sure you all know Paul's story and how he was converted by his encounter with Jesus. And he says, like one untimely born, even I became an apostle. And I can say to you, because of that, by the grace of God, I am what I am. And God's grace has not been wasted on me. And I think that's the closing of the story I'd bring you. All the different things I've gotten to experience in this journey, all the gifts that I see every day, great and small. By the grace of God, I am what I am. And I hope that all of you can say that for yourselves.
Amen. Amen. That's so wonderful. Thank you so much. I could relate to so many things with your story. I appreciate, I'm sure that everybody else did too, especially the last closing words that because of God's grace, I am who I am right now, and God's grace has not been wasted on me. Thank you so much. Everyone, remember, God's grace has not been wasted on you also. And you are worthy to give the life of the only Son of our Lord. Amen. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight and carry this story with you, and also the meditation, what we learned today, also with you through the day, and especially those one of those moments that we need those, that we learned today. So thank you, everyone, and I will see you on Sunday in person.
Enjoy your
Yes,
quiet and travel safely.
thank you. Thank you so much. May God's grace be with you.
And also,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye, Pastor. Bye-bye.